So this mindfulness exercise is going to be involving our what skill of describing, which means describing our experience without needing to judge it, cling to it, or push it away in any way. And this exercise links in really well with both DBT and acceptance and commitment therapy. In the exercise, we are going to be focusing on our thoughts, so noticing each thought that comes into our head. And then we are going to be describing those thoughts by either writing them down or describing them in your head. And the idea is that we are going to be describing the type of thought rather than the content of the thought itself. Because when we describe the content, it's a lot easier to kind of get actually caught up in the thought rather than stepping back and just describing it. So, for example, I might have a thought of noticing that the neighbours mowing their lawn outside, and so I might note down sounds as the type of thought. Or I might start thinking about, oh, I have to leave in 5 minutes. So I might be sort of thinking about the things I need to do next, and I might describe that type of thought as planning. Or I might be thinking about my kids and something that I need to do for them, and so I might down the type of thought as family. Or you might have thoughts around work or worries or the past, anything like that. Just notice what type of thought it is, and then let it pass and notice the next thought and the next thought and the next thought until you end up with a whole list of different types of thoughts. It's also fine if you have no thoughts during the exercise. Sometimes our minds do go blank. That's okay as well. And anytime you notice your mind wander to something else or get caught up in a thought, just notice that your mind has wandered and gently bring it back to simply describing each thought that comes into your head. So we'll have a go at doing this exercise. We generally recommend that you sit in a sort of alert and upright position, feet flat on the floor, palms resting gently in your lap, and you can either shut your eyes, or if you're not comfortable with that, you can just gently lower your gaze. And just take a moment to notice the thoughts that come into your mind. And if needed, you can open your eyes at any point to write down a description of your thought. Remember just to note down the type of thought. Don't get caught up in the content. And if at any point you start making judgments about yourself or the thought or the exercise, you can just notice that type of thought as a judgment and let it pass. And just take one last minute, just noticing any last thoughts that come into your mind. And just note your final thought down, and then you can return your attention to the video. So when we do these videos, obviously we can't actually have discussions with you, but in person when we were running mindfulness groups, the question that we would always ask after a mindfulness exercise is, what did you notice? So you might notice that you got really, really caught up in one particular thought and you found it hard to let go and to notice the next thought. You might have found that you got distracted by things around you, so like noises from outside. You might find that you had loads and loads of thoughts about one particular thing, that your mind kept coming back to a particular topic, or that you pushed away certain thoughts, or that some of your thoughts were sort of in images rather than perhaps words, and that sort of thing. So just noticing anything that came up in that particular practice for you, and sometimes it can be helpful to reflect on the type of thoughts that are coming through your mind, because it might be that there are things that you perhaps need to address, or there might be thoughts that tend to hook you a bit more than others, that you find it harder to step back and observe and describe, and so it might be that you decide what mindfulness practice to do next based on that. So I hope that you found that helpful, and feel free to try some of our other mindfulness practices.